Could Bradley Beal be moving on from our nation's capital, and could he be coming down to Dallas? Welcome into Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson filling in today, talking about one of the big stories in the NBA offseason, as Bradley Beal has been rumored to potentially be on the move. And if so, the Washington Wizards are going to do right by number 3 and try to find him the best home possible. And could that home be the Dallas Mavericks? So the latest on Beal. So Shams put out a report that the Wizards and Beal have mutual interest to work together on finding a trade. Now, it is worth noting that Bradley Beal has a full no-trade clause. So doesn't matter what the Wizards put together or what they agree with. If Bradley Beal is not on board, it is not getting done. Now, an interesting potential destination is not just the Miami Heat. There are a handful of teams that would definitely be interested in acquiring the services of Bradley Beal. But what about the Miami Heat and our producer Nick Roloff's favorite team, the Miami Heat? Now, Rolly, as you lick your wounds from Game 5, I had to get a jab in. Do you think Bradley Beal is going to be a Miami Heat?
Yeah, so I know a lot of Mavs fans are going to be happy that the Miami Heat lose in the NBA Finals, and I get it, that's fair. We had some good battles in the Finals. 1-1 overall series. No, there's not a lot of love between our two fan bases. But when you do look, it makes sense for the Miami Heat to make a move for Bradley Beal. We saw in that NBA Finals that they really struggled to score the basketball, only eclipsing 100 points one time out of the 5 games that they played. So they obviously need a scoring boost if they want to get over the hump and potentially win an NBA Finals in the future. So could Bradley Beal be that guy? It makes sense, especially with the report that we'll get into from Shams, that the price not be as high as it would be expected to be. Maybe the Heat swoop in, send a hero, and 1 first-round pick to get Beal to pair up with Jimmy and Bam, and you got that extra score alongside the dynamic duo that works so well on the defensive end and offensive end of Bam and Jimmy.
I would say let's start a Heat podcast, but you've already started one here at Chat Sports. Now, here's more from Shams on Bradley Beal. It is unclear whether the Wizards will ultimately decide upon a rebuild or if they find an acceptable trade, but sources said both sides are working amicably to find the path forward, with the 2023 NBA Draft looming on June 22nd. The sources, who were granted anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the matter, said the Miami Heat are expected to be prominent suitors for Beal if he reaches the market. Now, let's look at this through a Mavericks lens here. If you guys were calling the shots for Dallas, would you trade for Bradley Beal? He has been one of the best guards in the National Basketball Association over the last decade. Now, he's had, unfortunately, his good run-in with injuries and missing some time, but it's Bradley Beal. I mean, he was sort of a Robin for John Wall for quite some time, but he is his own Batman right now, and that, with Luka Doncic, would definitely be a very good duo. Now, Woj had this to add on. With the NBA Draft looming on June 22nd and free agency commencing on July 1st, conversation on Beal's future with the Wizards are expected to become more frequent, sources said. If I had to predict whether or not Beal gets moved ultimately, I think it's a yes, and I think it's before the NBA Draft, right? Teams want that pick compensation for this year's draft, because if they get it after the draft, well, now they don't have Bradley Beal for this upcoming season, the Wizards, and they don't have a pick to replace him until next year. So the price would definitely go up if you were to wait till after the NBA Draft. Now, Rolly, more on this from your point of view here. From a Maverick side, is there something you have to offer to the audience?
Yeah, well, and I think it could be beneficial for the Mavericks to target Bradley Beal, and they'll have to really gauge where things stand with Kyrie Irving, because if they feel that Irving, who they just traded for at the deadline from last year, is going to leave and maybe team up with LeBron in LA, and I know there's a lot of rumors there, maybe they go out and realize, well, we can't leave Luka Doncic hanging, so we go out and trade for Bradley Beal. Now, it is tough because what Woj and Sham said when it came to them potentially, or Beal getting traded prior to this draft, which is 1 week from tomorrow, that means the Mavericks need to think fast here and make a decision on if they're bringing back Kyrie or they're trying to go get Bradley Beal. Because a Beal, Kyrie, Luka trio probably doesn't fit together. So they'd have to make the decision between Beal and Kyrie. And since they've already invested so much into Kyrie, I imagine they'll stick with trying to just re-sign Irving. But if they do feel the sense that Irving's going to leave them in free agency, maybe they do go trade for Bradley Beal.
Good point, Rolly. Now, if Beal is traded to the Mavs, you guys know Harrison Graham and Jeffrey Cooperstein are going to get you guys a video as soon as possible. In fact, they work so hard behind the scenes to get you guys content, even when they are not in the office. Well, they're making sure someone is at least talking about Bradley Beal coming to the Mavs. So smash that subscribe button down below and get locked in for the best Mavericks YouTube coverage. If you're unfamiliar with Bradley Beal's work, well, catch yourself up here because he has been one of the best scorers in the NBA. He averaged over 30 a game in 2020 to 2021. Now, unfortunately, availability has become a knock on him as of late, limited to 50 and 40 games the last 2 seasons. So one just below 50% and the other just above 50%. But when Beal's playing, he can be a 30-plus scorer for a team, right? Now, last season specifically, 23.2 points per game. He's always been a good distributor, 5.5 assists pretty much, so a bit on the downside for Beal. But shooting-wise, over 50%, beyond the arc, over 36%. He is lethal with the ball. He has always been one of the better shooters in the NBA. Now, in his career playoff stats, well, unfortunately, he doesn't have a ton of postseason experience, right? No one's seen the Wizards go all that far late in the season. But he has been maybe not his complete self, right? A bit of a downturn in field goal percentage and three-point percentage, but still, he has been a very good player for the Wizards when it has mattered in the postseason, and he has some experience, but doesn't have a boatload of runs to Eastern Conference championships or anything like that. So at this point in Bradley Beal's career, we are approaching that good versus elite / average, right? Do you think Beal is still an elite player? Is he a good player? Is he kind of an average player at this point? Rolly, where do you think he is?
I would still say he's between good and elite.
Yeah.
I would probably rank him on an all-star level when you talk about like starter, all-star, star, superstar. I think he's at that all-star level, but that's about it. He could be an elite number 2 option.
Yeah, I'll echo that for sure. Now, speaking of number 2s, well, he would be number 2 to Luka, and we've got great deals going on. You can get your own Luka jersey on sale right now. So if a tiny part of you is looking to pick up a new Luka jersey or your first Luka jersey, get it today using our exclusive link, chatsports.com/Luka jersey. That link's in the comments and the description of today's show. So if you're looking to cop one of Luka's jerseys, get it now until before that deal runs out, and then you'll be paying full price next week, and you will wish that you got it last week when Matthew Peterson from Mavericks Today told you to do so. Now, some more numbers on Bradley Beal if you're still a bit unsure whether or not it would be a good move for Dallas to pursue. Catch and shoot percentage from 3, 40%. Pull-up three-point percentage, 33%. Less than 10 feet field goal percentage, so right there near the paint, 60.2%. Overall ranking 23rd. So those are the advanced shooting metrics that the nerds spit out for us. Now, Bradley Beal is not a cheap player. I mean, he is paid handsomely. And the Mavericks or the Heat or any other team would have to pay him handsomely as they took on his contract and matched some salaries as well. So trading for Bradley Beal for Dallas or for any other team is not going to be a very simple trade. There would have to be a lot of moving pieces. Now, I do want to reiterate, he has a no-trade clause, right? So if he were to go to Dallas or to Miami or to any other team, that no-trade clause would transfer as well. So basically, he gets to pick where he wants to go. And for a guy that's been very committed to Washington, when they've had a lot of down times and it looked like moving on from Bradley Beal could be in everyone's best interest, he has stuck by that franchise. He has been committed to DC. But if he decides his window to win a ring is closing, and hey, there's this super good European dude in Texas I could maybe team up with and go on a run in the Western Conference, well, the Mavericks could be sitting pretty right there if they do lose out on Kyrie this offseason. So the Beal destinations, as I see it, the Miami Heat, The New York Knicks, anytime a marquee player is rumored to be available, if you just say Madison Square Garden, the nerds on Twitter are going to run with it, and they're going to hype up the Knicks. The Philadelphia 76ers, they're kind of in limbo with the future of James Harden there in the city of brotherly love. So if Harden moves on and you want to get Joel Embiid a new partner to work with, Beal could be going to Philly. That is a very viable destination. And then, of course, as we just touched on, the Dallas Mavericks. Now, it's not going to be cheap to acquire Bradley Beal. This is my best attempt at putting together a Bradley Beal trade package. A lot of players going to DC. Bertans, Josh Green, Hardy, Tim Hardaway Jr., and 2 first-round picks. So a lot of resources, right, Rolly? I mean, do you think Beal at this point in his career is worth all this?
So I think a lot of Mavericks fans would look at this potential trade idea and think, that is a lot to give up, especially when Shams and Woj said it's possible that Bradley Beal will go for much cheaper than expected. Well, there's one reason why there's so many assets going towards the Mavericks' way, and it's because of Bradley Beal's contract. You have to be able to match salary in an attempted trade. And we know Tim Hardaway's got a big contract, Davis Bertans. Josh Green and Hardy don't have big contracts, but Bertans and Hardaway are in this deal to match salary. Hardy and Green as decent young players, and then obviously a couple first-round picks. I think this trade idea we've cooked up, in hindsight, might be a little too much to give up, but the reason why Bertans and Hardaway are in there is to match salaries. I would probably only offer one of Green and Hardaway alongside 2 first-round picks.
Plus, the Mavericks and the Wizards do have a bit of history of coordinating and executing trades in the last couple of years, so would not be the first time a deal were to be done between Dallas and DC. Now, before we get you guys on out of here, grade Bradley Beal as a player. Scale 1 to 100. We ran through a bunch of stats and whatnot. Maybe that altered your decision or opinion on him. For me, I think Bradley Beal is he's an 88. I think he's a solid 88. Rolly?
I would actually concur with that, and I
let's
believe
go.
his 2K rating is like an 87 or 88, so
Off
I
the
think
cuff.
you might have just looked at the 2K website.
I did not. No cheating here. No.
But I think that is pretty fair. He's got a 3-level scoring ability. Defense is questionable. Injury history is questionable, but can be an unbelievable second or third scorer on a championship contending team.
That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Producer Rolly and myself will sign off. Probably our last time on Mavericks today. I don't know. We got the bat signal up in the air that a Bradley Beal video had to get done, so we came into the office to make sure it got out to you guys.